Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Future of Medicine podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Wenzel, and I am joined finally once again by the lovely and talented Jen Justus.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going amazing. It's great to be doing this again.
Yes.
We've had a couple of episodes apart. It's not you, it's me. But it's great to be back thinking about and planning and now delivering some content that we're really excited about, that we believe deeply in, and we really think it will help people.
Yes.
This episode is part one of a three-part series that I'm calling the 3 Pillars of Health. It's been my experience, and it's really crystallized over the last 12 months, and I started verbalizing this, is that all meaningful progress in one's health journey, for the most part, tend to track through one of 3 pillars. Mm-hmm. You either make meaningful progress through optimizing the way you eat or feed your body, mm-hmm. or you make meaningful progress by improving or optimizing the way you move or challenge your body physically. And then probably the most underrated of all is that you can improve meaningfully your health by improving or optimizing the way you recover your body on a daily basis. So these are the 3 pillars: eating, moving, and recovering. This episode, we're going to go deep into eating, mm-hmm. how to think about optimizing your diet, and we'll do the other pillars in the subsequent episodes. And within each episode, we're going to talk about them in layers, where it starts with thinking about the topic, like how do we need to be thinking about the way we eat? And then next, it will be how do you experience this physically? Like how do many people feel physically when they map out or march out these behaviors? And then lastly, how does it make them feel, mostly emotionally? Mm-hmm. What is the emotional experience when you get an optimal dietary strategy deployed? Mm-hmm. So it's a really interesting way to think about this, and we hope it's useful. Let's start with thinking. How do you need to be thinking about your diet? And I will briefly, for context of those that don't know anything about us, Jen and I began our journey professionally together about 10 years ago in the obesity space, really exclusively dealing with weight and weight-related diseases. And we have thousands of hours of experience with real humans who are really struggling. And I think that we have uncovered a lot of really interesting truths about this. But like all things, all progress begins with telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, humans, the only purpose of the human body is to stay alive. That's what we're designed to do. Every system and backup system we have is with the singular goal of don't die. Mm-hmm. And we need to eat in order to get energy so that we can achieve the goal of not dying. And for all of documented human history, prior to mass agriculture in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but certainly by the 1950s, the obesity rates in the world were less than 5%, mm-hmm. like 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're approaching obesity rates, approaching a third of the U.S. adult population. Mm-hmm. We have a real problem. And prior to these mass-produced, primarily grains, humans spent the majority of their time not eating. Mm-hmm. You didn't wake up and go right to the pantry and start nibbling, and you certainly didn't have a snack every 2 hours, and you didn't have a late-night snack. You got up and you got about your business, and if you were lucky, at the end of the day, you had a meal. Mm-hmm. We had a very fasted lifestyle, and we've adapted well to that. Mm-hmm. There were no metabolic disease. There was, et cetera, et cetera. And now, in an area where in a time where we have abundance, we're not doing very well.
Right.
We're not doing very well at all with all of this excess.
Mm-hmm.
This is what metabolic disease is. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's too many grains. It's too much blood sugar. It's too much blood pressure. It's too much cholesterol. It's too much. And this is fueling the diseases of diabetes, heart disease, cancer. I mean, what is cancer? Cancer is too much cell growth.
Yep.
We need intentional deprivation with very focused periods of time to eat, and which is why we believe that the best dietary strategy framework for most people, there are a handful of people where this is not going to work well, is a fasted lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's 12 hours a day, 13, 14, 15, 18, 24-hour fast, at least 12 hours a day not eating is a basic jumping off point for most people. If you're not at least doing that, it's kind of like X on the map, start here.
Yeah.
And we talk about this a lot, but we talk about freedom and discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being disciplined for discipline's sake. It's being disciplined in the things that we know will map us towards the thing we want.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want health and we want to feel good and we want vitality and we want longevity and health span, we have to figure out and crack the code of eating and how we feed our body. And being disciplined can be really, really overwhelming when you're being inundated with optionality and this diet and this and that and cut this out or add that and all you need to do is this. And it's too complex.
Yeah.
And it's confusing, overwhelm sets in and people go, bah. There's something about fasting, committing to a fasted lifestyle, whatever that means for you. And we've created a lot of content around this in the past that people can search for, or we give you kind of playbook of how to fast. But Jen, talk to me about, because you and I privately talk about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
My personal freedoms that have come when I fired Fat Aaron. It's been about 5.5 years.
Oh yeah, you've done amazing.
And but it was the first domino to fall.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, my career, my marriage, my parenting, my ability to lead, all of these things begin to start moving in a positive direction by just me getting control of what I'm putting in my body as a source of fuel. Talk to me about what freedom and discipline means to you and how fasting helps you really live true to that discipline.
Thank you. As we were preparing for the podcast, we were discussing the concept of freedom and discipline, and we've done a podcast on that before, but I feel like it's really important to weave that concept into this eating episode, because I feel like people view them as that they exist on opposite ends of the spectrum, but really they're interconnected, and you can't have one without the other. And I did some really deep reflection on my own life and my own experiences and came to this revelation, just as you shared, that everything good in my life has come from discipline. My spiritual walk, my marriage, my career, I couldn't have gotten to where I am in my life without some sort of discipline. And now applying that to my health journey, being very undisciplined in my health journey, I did not have freedom. I had a lot of stress. I had a lot of anxiety around it. I had a lot of guilt and shame. And once I really dialed in my diet, specifically first, which we teach our members to do that first and layer in exercise second if they're really overwhelmed. But that really started moving the needle for me, and I started seeing progress and getting momentum. But the discipline of fasting until 11, 12 o'clock. And believe me, we're talking about the thinking part of this. The thinking part for me is unlearning that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Come on.
Because I was raised to believe that.
Yeah.
And, our culture believes that, hey, you've got to fuel your body first thing in the morning or your brain's not going to fire. You're not going to be productive. And that simply a myth or a...
What's the product of one of the greatest marketing campaigns ever deployed
Yes.
in the world by Grape Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
That breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Yeah. And so...
Your first meal is.
Yeah, your first meal is, right.
Yes, I would agree. Your first, when you break your fast, it is the most important meal of the day. You're the most biochemically vulnerable. But it doesn't have to be the AM meal.
Right. And for me, I mean, my fasting journey was not easy in the beginning. Mostly because of my biochemistry, very insulin
You were
resistant.
intolerant.
And my body fought back and it didn't like it. But
I would actually say it wasn't easy. It was hard.
it was very hard.
It was very hard. You were very complex. It took us a long time
I was pretty grumpy.
to figure out
Yeah.
what was going on, but we really have uncovered, and I feel like you're unlocked.
Yeah. And I never gave up. So that was a really
That's it.
important thing for me, because in the past I have given up and I lost that discipline. And anyway, I appreciate you allowing me to share my journey, and I'm very forthcoming with doing that. But the thinking part is important, because if you don't have your mindset really wrapped around that concept, it will be more difficult for you to do.
Yeah, and I think patience and curiosity, if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you and you hadn't really given it a go for 6 to 12 months, I would encourage you to be curious and be patient. It took me about 6 months after I knew I wanted to do it, because I was a grumpy bear, because I woke up and I could never fast, because I wake up and I'm hungry. But what I've learned is that is completely a learned behavior. And it is my brain saying, I want a dopamine hit. And ideally that would be some crunchy, sweet carbohydrates.
Yep.
The unlearning, as you said, is part of the thinking process, being patient and curious about what fasting means for you. And the discipline for you, as I can speak to being front row of your whole journey, is that it has evolved, and allowing yourself to be flexible while still being committed to the goal of figuring out fasting. You allowed fasting to be implemented as your body would allow you to do it.
Yes.
And as you've stayed consistent with that and never giving up and showing up every day, here you are, completely different. And the ability to now achieve a deeper level of discipline, which then yields more freedom, which allows you to take that new freedom and energy and focus and put it even deeper into your discipline. It's a positive momentum cycle. And you're now undoing decades. Let me rephrase. You have undone decades of confusion and complexity, which, by the way, is the byproduct of lack of discipline.
Yeah. I mean, I can safely say I've done every diet under the planet, pretty much. And this is the first time where I feel in control. I feel confident.
And it's simple.
I mean, you're literally eliminating a third of the decisions that you have to make. I mean, you and I both make multiple really complex decisions per day.
Yep.
This is something that I don't want to think about too much. I mean, you do have to put some thought into it. And, with this thinking pillar, one piece of advice I would give people is set your environment up for success. If you open the pantry first thing in the morning and you see all those breakfast foods, you're going to want them first thing in the morning. So maybe, clean that out or do something in that regard.
Or get out of the house.
Go
I have
work out.
I have two kids, and I don't want to make eating weird for them.
Exactly.
So I work out, I grab my coffee, and I kiss them, and I say, see you later.
Yep.
On the weekends, it's very hard for me to be successful because it's all around me.
Yeah.
I don't have an environment that is supporting me. At the office, we have water and coffee.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's it. And then I get busy about my work, and I forget about it. And it's serving me well.
Yeah.
And the very things that I used to eliminate 40 plus pounds of fat off my body, and over 20% body fat, are the exact same strategies that I'm using 5 years later to maintain.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
And there's so much freedom that I experience that I can use that newfound surplus of energy and creativity and decision-making capacity, and I can apply them to other things. Well, thank you for that. I think your story will resonate with many, many people. In the next layer about of considering how we should be feeding our body, we slide into how will you typically experience this physically, a fasted lifestyle. We alluded to it a little bit in the first section. There is an element of transition and adaptation. Some people, like fish and water, they're like, anyway, that was easy. And they're totally unlocked day one. It took me 6 months to really unpack what the heck. I mean, and unlearn that I'm actually not hungry.
Yeah.
That I'm feeling the desire to eat, and I'm feeling the pangs of hunger, but it's not because I actually need to eat. There was plenty of fat and energy all around me. I eat to give my body energy, and I would say to myself, go get the energy. Go get it. It's there. It's in my belly. I'm not feeding you. Right. I'm in control. And then there's that freedom.
Yeah. There's
a sense of, that gets a little bit into the next section of kind of like the emotional, what you feel from it. But I would just say, and I'll let you kind of wrap this section up. But for me, right away, physically, I experienced more energy because of the decision-making fatigue. Number two, less bloated. I felt very, very trim. Even when I wasn't, there was this sense of lack of inflammation, like my body was doing what it was designed to do. I was creating a famine where my body was eating itself, which is what it is designed to do, cleaning out the stored energy. I slept better. I felt like I moved better. I was able to exercise more effectively. But the primary work that was done was really, for me, in that first 6 months of getting my mind right, like we talked about, but then allowing my body to feel what it's going to feel as I adapt to this new lifestyle. What about you?
Isn't that nice for you?
It wasn't so.
Well, I mean, but it was just a little harder because, again, my body just didn't want to really be in that fasted state in the beginning. But I experienced, I was a little grumpy. And this is in the first probably month or so, but headache and just really, really tired in the morning. And then, once I had my first meal, I felt better and really perked up a little bit. But once you kind of get over that initial phase and your body gets more adapted to it, I experienced exactly what you did. And in fact, recently when I did my colonoscopy prep, that involved probably about 36 hours of fasting, it wasn't horrible. Like, I was ready to eat at that point, but it wasn't like I was dragging and dying and just like, oh my gosh,
you were conditioned,
starving. You know what I mean? It was a little bit more pleasant experience, if that could be pleasant at all. But in the beginning it was difficult for me, but and I had some coaching. I did coaching with Zane at that time. We had a weekly call, and he would really talk me through what was happening to my body, remind me, hey, this is going to let up.
Well, back to what you said, you created an environment that encouraged you to do the thing that you wanted to do. You got it here. You got it through coaching, through your trainer. You got it. You were around, you were immersed in an environment of encouraging. And depending on where one is on their health journey, it may be very difficult to have the patience and the curiosity, because judgment and like, this doesn't work. It's not like the overwhelm.
What do you mean you're not eating?
And there's a lot of mixed messages, right? From pop culture. The bottom line is humans are not that frail. You'll be fine. Eating a few hours later.
Well, and
but your body pushes back.
How many patients have you experienced in the ICU or in really critical conditions where I mean, they're getting fed through an IV,
Yeah.
but they're not getting physical food, and
No.
they're still able to sustain their life until they get better. But it's
We have all become, as a culture, our thinking around how we need to eat has become diluted. And I think the big take-home point for the physical experience of a fasted lifestyle is there is going to be, it's like a two-step process. Step one, it might be immediate. It might be 6 months like me. It might be a year and a half like you. But stay the course.
Yes.
Because on the back end of that is complete freedom and simplicity and a lightness in your physical body that you begin to feel, and you're no longer chained to this, like, I have to eat, or I'm grumpy, or I have like, there's so much freedom.
And also pick up a cadence that works for you.
Right.
In the beginning, I didn't fast every day. I mean, I fasted maybe 3 days out of the week, and then I added more time to it.
And maybe it was just 12 hours.
Yeah, and you know, I used an app to help me track when I could eat. But you know, there's lots of tools out there to help you, and you don't feel like you have to go great, you know, big guns right out of the gate. I mean, you just kind of start slow if you need to, and really let your body kind of adapt to that so that you can tolerate it and feel better.
I totally agree. Patience, curiosity, and stick-to-itiveness is the key to physically be successful at improving the way you feed your body. Moving into the last section, and we'll wrap this up, is, you know, how will this likely make you feel? And there's a little bit of overlap here as we talk about this, but primarily what I'm talking about is the spiritual and kind of emotional feeling that comes from a disciplined, fasted execution. I'm just going to tell you, it is, for me, it is confidence, it is clarity, it is simplicity, it is a multiplier of my effort, and it's a compounding effect where, like a flywheel, that's the word I was looking for, like a flywheel. I still put forth effort, but it's like I'm just touching it and moving it. In the beginning, it takes a lot of force, of change. But once that flywheel gets going, and guess what? I can take my hand off it a little bit. I was just at Disney for a week. I was far from perfect. And then we get back 5-6 days later. I put my hand right back on it, start moving it a little bit again. And here, I'm 3 days back. I'm right back.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming off the holidays. I think I only gained 2 pounds total before.
Unreal.
I would have done serious damage, 5
Well,
to 10
who knows?
pounds.
For many years, it was who knows, because you weren't, it didn't matter. You weren't tracking it.
Exactly. But then you just slip right into, you know, New Year's resolutions with, I've already established a great lifestyle and habit for myself. So now it's just maintaining that flywheel, you know, just keeping that going and not getting off track, keeping that discipline.
I think as I finish up this thought and put a bow on it, for me personally, figuring out how powerful a fasted lifestyle was for me to achieve freedom there, it has given me a unique insight that being disciplined in the things that are most important allow me to achieve freedom in the things that are most important.
I love that.
And you alluded to or said that we intuitively we feel like discipline and freedom are on opposite ends of the spectrum, but in reality they are connected, and the lack of freedom and discipline equals chaos and complexity.
That's right.
Wherever there's complexity in my life, it's because it either doesn't matter and I'm not actually paying any attention to it, or it is something that matters and I haven't applied the discipline yet. But every area where I've committed to being disciplined, I'm experiencing the downstream freedom.
Yeah.
It's very counterintuitive, and it requires a transition and an adaptation, getting that flywheel going. But if someone could take anything away from this episode, and I never can create another piece of content, it would be figure out what's most important to you and commit to yourself that the results are worth it. And there is no way to get the result without being disciplined towards the things that will map you there.
Yeah.
And be patient, be gracious, be kind to yourself, be curious. That's what I would say.
And never give up.
Never. And you would be well served to find a couple, at least one person who can encourage you, who has your best interest in mind.
Yeah.
They're not trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Any famous last words, Jen?
Well, thank you for putting these pillars together. I'm excited as the podcast moves into 2023 to talk about these with you and experience them in the next few episodes. So
yeah, I'm excited. You know,
great.
Next episode, we're going to take the same framework and apply it towards how to move your body.
Yeah.
And then we'll follow that up with how to recover your body. These are old, tried and true methods, but a new way to think about it that I find easier to think about.
Yeah.
And less tethered to dogma and religion and kind of old ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And so.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
Okay.